You are listening to the Hammersley Brothers e-commerce podcast. Like what you hear and want to take the shortcut on your e-commerce growth? Join hundreds of brands that work with us and head over to joinhb.com. That's joinhb.com and see how we can help you further. Join our members and smash your targets and unlock the profits within your e-commerce site. Hello Ian, how are you?
Good evening, Mark. Yes, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. Yes, welcome to another podcast, Hammersley Brothers podcast. And we are in the middle of a 5-part series in talking. I should know the answer to this. 5-part series of why your ads aren't working. So why your ads aren't scaling.
The
And
number one question on everyone's lips. Why aren't their ads
and
working?
If people didn't see last week's episode, we went into effectively it was titled "It's not your ads, it's your margin, it's your model." So we looked at the model first because obviously people they can keep switching agencies and agency hopping and changing people running the ads, but fundamentally it might be something else. So we that's what we did. We checked the model first.
Yeah.
And today's podcast, in my little notes, I have titled it as "Your landing pages suck." So, again, like the last couple of ones we talk about in this 5-part series are actually ads related. So they are actually ads related, but we're just checking off the most important things to check first, particularly if you've constantly not been able to make ads work, because you want to be in a position where your model and your landing pages means that you can have a business that works with mediocre ads, not having to have the top 1% of ads in the country. Because if you have to have the top 1% of the ads in the country, you're quite likely to lose that 1% at some point and not have a business. So you really want to be having everything, all your ducks in a row, everything working outside of that. So yeah, landing pages suck, not working, and I know it's something we talk a lot about.
Yeah. So landing pages suck, and effectively what we're saying is that your site sucks. But the reason why we say landing page is because it's where we look first. And the reason we look at the landing page first is because if I say to you, "Oh, your site sucks," well, where? What do you mean? What do you mean the site sucks? And it's a massive conversation. It's like having a shop on the high street, a physical retail store, and saying, "We shop's crap." Like, first thing you're going to go, "Well, what do you mean my shop's crap?" And then you start to break it down. You start to say, "Well, look, when they come through the door, they can't find anything. All right, in fact, even the shop window's crap." And you start to break it down. So this is exactly what Mark and I are doing now. We're saying, well, your landing pages suck, and we start there because it's the biggest bang for our buck. And what we do is, because we are inherently trying to do the least amount of effort to move the needle. I mean, that's the kind of cornerstone. We're going, well, what if there was only one thing that I could do, what would it be? That guaranteed I was going to get a big return for my time. And that's why we look at the landing page and we look at where they land across home, product, category, or collection pages. And it's typically one of those three. And you get some blogs and some checkouts, some cart pages. But we're going like from a paid ad, we're just looking at paid ads now, is where they land, and it's going to be either home, products, or a collection page typically. And so we look at, well, which one is it? And if you look at if you add them all up, obviously home is always quite a big one. But if you add up all of the products together and the top landing pages and all of the collection pages or category pages, you kind of go, well, which one it is? And most of the time, it's the product page. Not always, but most of the time it's the product page, and then it's the second one, which could be the home page. And so then we look at what device. Is it mobile? And also, is it iPhone or is it Android? Because that is significant as well, which we can talk about later. But we're talking about, is it mobile? What's the percentage of mobile? And let's say, hypothetically, because the majority of people, not the majority, but a lot of people now will be it'll be their product page on a mobile. And it won't just be all the product pages. We'll look at the top, 20 product pages. And so it's like the 80-20 rule. So, 80% of the time, it's going to be these 20% of the products they're going to be landing on. So we will then look at that page and we'll say, well, this is where they are landing. They're landing on these products or top products on a mobile. So if we get that page right, it's going to have a massively positive effect on the ads. But if we try and overhaul the entire website, like if you had a shop, you'd have to do a major shop fit out. You'd have to change all the internal fittings of the shop. It would take bloody ages. But if we just go, let's focus on this particular bit, we're getting a damn good return for our time, and that's why we do it. And that's the context of it. It's a time saving one, really, isn't it? Before I move into what we do next, what would you add to that?
So it's human nature, really. So effectively what we're doing is we know that when someone sees the site for the first time, they're coming at it with a blank head, and they're then filling it up with their impressions and their opinions of the site, and they get built. It's like when you meet a new person. You meet a new person, you create an impression of them, and then sometimes you have to kind of fight the impression that you've made. If you made a bad impression the first time, it takes you a lot longer to overcome that with somebody than if you made a good impression. So it's the same with websites. So what is getting communicated on that first visit when they first see it will have a big effect on the whole visit of the person. Obviously, if it's really bad, they'll bounce off the website. They won't even stay. So what we're looking for is to have an unfair advantage based on the impression we make when they land on those key landing pages. And we know that it makes a big difference. And so just coming into the orchestration of that first visit, you'll see some of the really, really big sites that we work with. Some of them are doing something like the one that's doing about 10 million a month, right? So if you go to their website on a mobile, on their key landing page, everything is orchestrated. Even the cookie pop-up, the browser pop-up, the data capture pop-up, like everything is, it's not by chance. Whereas you see like the smaller sites are kind of just like trying to get everything sorted out. You'll land and it's pop, 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 pop.
Let's put a bit of context on what we mean by everything's sorted out, because again, that's about, we always used to laugh and, because everybody goes, oh, get your conversion rate higher. And it's like, yeah, okay. That's like saying go and score more goals. Just score more goals. If you want to win a football game, you need to score more goals. Like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, now I've got a clear plan. And
I've always said goals in football are important.
Yeah, that is the equivalent. If someone says you need to get a higher conversion rate, that is literally the most useless, obvious statement. It's like, how do I get my conversion rate higher? And I think the two metrics that we are trying to influence here in order to make our ads work is revenue per visitor, and that is conversion rate and average order value combined, right? But we don't start with average order value. We start with the conversion rate. Okay, and the average order value is then, of course, if we're going to get a sale, we want it to be a larger sale, right? So we start with the conversion rate, and in that example you mentioned there, I mean, they're a health supplement brand, and the mistake that they were making when they were, I mean, when I say the mistake, this is when they're doing about 1 million a month. Yeah, so they were doing reasonably well, but now they're doing about 10 million a month. The mistake they were making is that they were assuming that people knew who they were, right? And they were doing 1 million a month, yet they assumed that first-time browsers knew who they were. They didn't. Even 1 million a month, they didn't know who they are, and that's very, very common. Even some of the bigger brands that we've got. I mean, we've got many people doing 3-4 million a month, and they're still massively
very small, really, in terms of brand recognition
than the leading competitors. The leading competitors in that particular space. There's a menswear retailer. They're doing 500 million globally online. And these guys are doing 2 million a month, right? So they're tiny even though people will be listening to this thinking, well, they're quite big, but you have to assume that no one's ever heard of you. And that starts on the product page. So this brand we mentioned before that's doing 10 million a month now, when they were doing 1 million a month, they're landing on the product page and there's no information about who that business is. There's all it is the logo. There's no positioning, there's no credibility, there's no instant passing of the busy restaurant test. And so that was the first thing, because there was an overwhelming urge to go back where you've come from. Watch anybody browse. I mean, I've sat in user group focus group testing, but you don't need. You just look at how people browse, and they go back. So if they're on Google or Instagram, for example, or Facebook, and they see an ad, they click through. They just want to go back. Like, oh no, like they make this nanosecond decision: is am I in the right place? When they land, am I in the right place? Am I going to find what I want? And they make that decision in like a nanosecond. And I would say, imagine if your customer has, it's late at night, lying on the sofa, on the back, they've had 2 gin and tonics, they're on the phone, and they're literally browse, and they're almost half there. They're like half cut, they're knackered, and they're on the phone with had 2 gin and tonics, and they've got to make that decision then. So it's got to be so obvious that they're going to find what they want.
Yeah.
And that example that I mentioned before is they have no busy restaurant test whatsoever. And so if you look at any of the sites that we optimize when we do this first, you will know they all pass the busy restaurant test. The busy restaurant test is the first domino of our 6 domino of e-commerce conversion, and that is, do I pass the busy restaurant test? And I'm sure everybody has heard us banging on about the busy restaurant test loads and loads of times. Shall I say it one more time?
Why not?
Well, I'll say it. So the busy restaurant test, we came up with that because the analogy is that you're in a city somewhere with your partner, you're hungry, and you see 2 restaurants in front of you, 100 yards away. One is nicely full, one is empty. And you turn to your partner and you say, which restaurant should we eat at? They go, well, that one there, clearly. Why? Because there's people in it. Well, you don't even know what the restaurant is. You don't know how much it is, you don't even know what food it is, but you instinctively go, well, it must be better because there's people in it. That is this very simple example of what we mean by the busy restaurant test. And it doesn't need to always be evidence to people, but it's instant trust. It's that instant positioning and what that is. And so that's the first thing we always get right. We always focus on that because it's the easiest. It's the easiest, most fundamental, simple thing to do with anyone. What is the busy restaurant test equivalent for you? Is it a strap line? Is it a little convincibility tree? Do it all the time, and people miss it. They miss that one so much.
I think
It's so
the
easy.
second thing as well is, I mean, we've talked about the busy restaurant test, haven't we? How we can
Loads
do
of
it and all
times.
that kind of stuff, loads of times. The second thing is, if you think about the busy restaurant test, you're looking at a restaurant. The second thing people think is this going to be easy? That's what they think. So if you look at a restaurant and it's completely full and people's queuing out the door, even though it's busy, you're not going to go in. If you can see into that restaurant and you can see it's busy, but you can see a nice table that's available for you, and there's a nice looking.
That's why I use the word nicely full.
Yeah.
It's
So
nicely
there's
full.
someone there you can easily talk to, waiting to welcome you to the restaurant, and perhaps you can see that people are eating food that you like the look of, that you could eat, that you would like the taste of. You think it's a busy restaurant. It's going to be easy. The process is going to be easy. That's the second step. So it's like, first step is busy restaurant test. Second step is it going to be easy?
Yeah, but just remember, when you're 150 yards down the street, you haven't seen the food, you haven't seen the menu.
Yeah.
It's just that instant feeling.
Yeah, it's
and
bringing
that's
you
what
in.
we want,
It's the
right?
yeah.
So that's what we want. And then the next one of the domino is the navigational flow, and that is once you've passed the busy restaurant test, then it's helping people find the right product, and that's the second one that people often get completely wrong. And the same one, the example that we mentioned before, the health food supplement, they're massive. Now they're doing 10 million a month. They didn't have any navigational flow. We put a lot of emphasis on navigational flow. I won't go into it in a load of detail, but I will say the lowest hanging fruit is the breadcrumbs on a mobile. Why do people remove the breadcrumbs on the product page? And we've talked about this so many times.
Yeah,
It's like
and also you
one
don't
of
need to repeat the product title in the
no,
breadcrumb.
don't repeat the product bloody
It's like
title for
home
God's
and then
sake.
product title. It's massive, and
Yeah,
then say the product title. It's like no help. Like, what are you
yeah.
doing?
So we won't go into that, over and over again because the breadcrumb is an example where it's like, oh God, everyone's going to shit. Better check my breadcrumbs down on mobile, and it probably isn't there because your developer's gone and your graphic designer turned it off because I think, oh, it looks really clean without it.
Mm.
Yeah, but does it bounce? So what the metric we're trying to do is that we're trying to decrease the bounce rate on that product page. And the average bounce rate on a mobile product page in GA4 should be less than 35%. You didn't remember that, did you?
No, I did create it for you though originally. The stat. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think you did. You did.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the second one.
You're
And
looking like you're looking it up on your phone.
actually, you know what? No, my kids have just asked me for more screen time on Roblox.
Oh, see.
Right in the middle of the
No.
podcast.
No screen time.
No, because they could have come in. Then they come
Oh, I
in.
see. They come in and
It's
crash.
parent
It's half
neglect.
term.
This.
Yeah.
I know it's half term.
Yeah.
Um,
See, I one mistake I think that a lot of people make, or sites are making at the moment, is that, so let's say you're on Google, or let's say you're on Meta or Google, and you see a product you like, or you see something you like, see some image you like. You click on it, you land on a website, and the first thing you see is a little bit of the header, but the pop-ups and stuff. You can't see anything. You can't see the site. You can't see the product. You can't see anything. And the first thing you're seeing is basically loads of information asking you to do different stuff. I think that, and it's not for all websites, because if you look at Betting Envy is much more about the pop-up and all that kind of stuff, but it's got an image on the pop-up, so you see it in the right place. But for certain aspirational businesses, you have to fall in love with the product. And the product is the hero. So you really want them to land on the site and go, that's it. I can see it.
part of the busy restaurant test, actually,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's part of that.
Think of it this way.
Look.
What shops on the high street cover their windows with black paper? Like, not good shops, do they?
The ones that have gone out of business, I think.
Ones that have gone out of business, and the people that don't want people to be seeing what's inside. So, you don't have a shop that says that you have to kind of sign a click, okay, I accept your terms and conditions before you see the product.
And the example would be, if you're walking down the high street and you see, so let's talk about the homepage now, because let's just move on a little bit, but just put in the context of this. If you're walking down the high street and it's a clothes shop, men's clothes shop, in the shop window you would put, some really, you put some fantastic, peacock style outfits, your big bestsellers, your absolute seasonal classics that are really, really strong. Because that will get people in. You wouldn't put your weird, belt collection in the shop window because it's it's not what you would put. It'd be obvious. So I think it's also remembering that people walk past the shop and they're often new, might be seeing it for the first time. You want to put it's new people coming often. You're the time.
Yeah, it's new in, it's what's trending, it's what's relevant to now. It's talking to the conversation they're already having in their head. It's the same. It's the same thing.
Complicate it because they think, oh, people are going to get bored. We're bored of the website. We're bored of the homepage. But if people haven't seen it for the first time, it might be performing really well. So don't overthink it. Don't get too creative with it. Too complex. Yeah. But I think can I just go on? I was going to move off slightly, but you've got anything else to say?
No, that's fine. You go for what you want.
No, I have to shut you down there.
No, because I had a big point in my head, but just
it's gone.
By the time I came to got it, it was gone. I'm sure it was amazing.
Brilliant. The dynamic Hammersley brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, these podcasts are, they're fun and they're free. We're not going to give all the answers. You have to just come and join our program to get all the answers. Well, then I think the summary of it, is we are going through, we're breaking down what a good landing page is. A good landing page for me is something that gives you the highest ROAS possible, and that comes from a conversion rate and average order value. And I'm not going to go into the 6 dominoes, but they are absolutely fundamentally critical for you to have a good, solid understanding of what the conversion rate is and where it comes from, right? It is not a technical, conversation. It is not who can make the website faster. It has nothing to do with that. That is fundamentally not why people buy. Nothing to do with technicalities. It's nothing to do with website speed. It is everything to do with understanding the emotions of where people are. It's all about that. And the 6 dominoes are that. So, I had another point then, but it's gone out of my head. But the revenue per visitor was a mixture of the conversion rate and the average order value. Now, here's what it was. Over the last 12 to 24 months, we have been experimenting with specific landing pages based on specific channels. Don't want to get too complicated, but specific channels with specific landing pages with specific products that are tailored to that first customer journey. So like Wizard
Recruitment
and Get
products.
Started, recruitment products. And with Meta versus Google, you often have to think about those a bit. I don't want to make it too complicated for everybody, but there are certain scenarios where we've gone, if it's Meta and it's a product they're not as aware of, and they need a little bit more knowledge and experience, warming up. You have to take them often to a landing page that has a lot more depth about the trust, credibility, positioning, anxiety reducing. And you also want to try and get the average order value up. There's a couple of businesses, I'll just name one actually. There's one called Happy Mammoth that I always use as an example. And it's a landing page where, they're selling a product that it's complicated. They are unaware of of this product and what it might do, and they take you through a very, very specific process that is different for Google. It's different from the homepage and the product page layout, and basically, it's overwhelming evidence of trust and credibility, and an offer architecture that gets a much higher average order value on the first purchase, because that's what we want. Just to put it in perspective, right? If we're selling something for $50 and we have a conversion rate of 2%, if we can sell something if we can get them to $100, but the conversion rate drops to 1.6%, we are massively won, because our ROAS is gonna be much higher because our average order value is much higher. So
Yeah, it's
that's what
increased
we're playing with.
more.
With
Yeah.
trade-off of conversion rate and average order value, we want the highest ROAS we can possibly get, and we're playing with the sweet spot of conversion and average order value. It's not to say we don't want conversion rate, but we know we'll take a higher average order value because we can significantly scale our ads, much more
Yeah.
quickly because we're getting more cash off them.
I think the other thing that I've been noticing a lot of the time with these landing pages, particularly where you've got to explain something and you've got these key benefits, is they'll have a few images and then they'll just plonk a video on there and they'll go, oh, okay, there's a video on there. It's going to explain the whole thing, right? Whereas what you've actually got to do is you've got to choreograph how the benefits are shown to the user, like problem, benefit, problem, benefit. It's like, well, we've got this product. There are 4 big reasons why people would buy this product, and we'll order those in the order of most important first. And rather than watching a video for 2 minutes, it's like, there's a GIF. This explains this first one. There's a GIF. This explains the second one. There's a GIF that explains the third one. Effectively choreographing what we're telling people and effectively bringing the story to the prospect, to the browser, rather than the browser having to come to us and explain it. And so
I think
there's a
I'll give people an example of that really, really quickly. Space Goods is another business, and if you look at the imagery of Space Goods, the product imagery, it is telling you pretty much the 6 dominoes of e-commerce. In the imagery. So often we have to repeat it. So if you look at if you look at mobile product, people scroll it with a thumb.
Yeah.
So,
It's different modalities, isn't it? Some people get the stories from the images, so people scroll down on the page.
Repeat it. The whole product page is a repeat, continual repeat of those 6 dominoes, and as it should be. You're repeating it over and over. You're saying the same thing, and you're going into more and more depth, over and over and over again. I mean, if anybody's listening to this and wants to know how to do it, obviously, if you join the program, we'll take you through the flow
for your landing
each
pages.
type of business. For each one of these. If you're a compounding business, if you have a flow. If you are selling other people's product, it is completely different. Completely different. If you are a business that is selling other people's brands, it's massively different than any of this. So you can't listen to everything that we are saying. If you are selling other people, you need to know what's different about it. And it's bloody obvious, but people make that mistake all the time.
The other mistake people make is if they're on Shopify, the fact that Shopify's got all the extensions in the world, you don't have to add them all at once just because you can. And you'll see, there's particularly small sites, you go out there and they go, there's 425 people looking at this product. James just bought this in Manchester. And it's like, no, he didn't. I'm pretty sure that there's not and it's just got all, and like, it's everything. You can't engineer a sale with cheap gimmicks out the fundamentals of what are you selling? How does it match their expectations? Have we proven that there's an energy of the buying energy to the site? Does it look easy to use?
Like we've seen over the years. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You've seen over the years that people putting things like quick view on the collection page, cocking up conversion rate completely.
Yeah.
Because there's some stupid notion that if we make the website quicker, faster, and one step is better than 5 steps, it'll convert better.
Well, it would work for like a supermarket website when you
go.
Is that the tin of peaches I buy? Quick view, yes, it is. But you're not going to buy a nice jacket like that. Is that that $1,000 jacket that I want to buy? Oh, yeah, it is. I'll just add it to the basket.
Quick view, yeah. You've got to have at least an average of 4 unique products per basket before that will become relevant. Anything under that, it often reduces conversion rate. But you're absolutely right. I think to sum it up, like Mark said before, and we said before, there's no technical cheat here. People don't buy because the website's faster. That would be like putting a self-service checkout in a high-end jewelry store. And going, oh, we've put a self-service checkout in the high-end jewelry store, like you can just sell, people are going to buy now. It's absolutely stupid. They buy because we've emotionally connected with the customer. We've demonstrated, we've gone through this formulaic 6 dominant e-commerce. I know we're banging on about it, but essentially, the reason why we are saying that this is so critical, because a lot of you may be sitting there blaming your agencies or your paid media or your pay-per-click guys, or who aren't performing. Yet the fundamental problem with that is you're putting way too much responsibility in their shoulders, and it's unfair. But B, you're not taking responsibility for what happens next. They come into the shop. What's experience like? The ads are only going to work if the revenue per visitor is hitting the sweet spot that we need, and that might be different for different channels. It might be different products as well. So hence why really take ownership of that, and you could do nothing to your ads and just focus on revenue per visitor, and you can make the ads work. And scale to your wildest dreams.
Well done. And we'll leave it there, I think.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everyone.
See you next week for the third in the series of the 5-part series of Why Your Ads Suck.
And then the last one, we'll do a bonus one, right? And the bonus is what will tell you really why you're adult looking. But you have to wait for the bonus 6 podcast, right?
Yeah.
We'll tell you the
can do that
real
one.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Won't take long.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. Bye,
See you
everybody.
later. Bye.
Bye.